Hello, hello, hello. Anyone out there? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Sincerely Agile with Mary. Welcome to another episode of Sincerely Agile with Mary. I can see people joining us now. This is the show where we promote the lean agile mindset, where we learn, unlearn, and relearn. This is, the platform where we make change agents of ourselves. So please subscribe to our channel, share with your friends, because this is a place where we are awesome and wholesome together. The name is Mary Lanion, as always, and I am your host. And today we are going to be looking at culture from the perspective of agile adoption. So today we're going to be looking at agile adoption and national cultures. Now, when we talk about culture, there's only one race, the human race. However, it's so diverse, it's so varied, and it comes in such beautiful cultures. So yes, it is one human race, but we have to be sensitive to the various cultures that we have. So as part of my, as part of my preparedness for this live, I decided to look at the definition for culture. And I found a few definitions, but I decided to pick this one. And culture is defined as the characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, and the arts. I got this from Google. And as you can see, this is who we are. If we're talking about our language, our religion, what we eat, our social habits, music, and the arts, this is who we are. So it is important that we take time out to understand other people's culture, especially if we're, going on holiday, or if we're going to live there, or if we're going to work there. It's important that we invest the time to understand the culture we are stepping into, because we really can offend people when we get it wrong. We really can offend people when we get it wrong. So for a very long time, long before the Agile movement, culture was always an important subject, especially when we're looking at organizational development. So as consultants, we go into organizations. We are maybe trying to help organizations with improving their processes. Maybe it is about, employee engagement, whatever the needs are. As a consultant, you come into an organization. One of the first things you want to try and understand is, what is the culture? What is the culture? Because if you don't understand what the organizational culture is, then there's a high chance you just might embarrass yourself as a consultant and you might seriously get it wrong. So culture was always, always an important subject, when we talked about organizations and all of that. And because of that, organizations actually invested, and they still do, invest a lot of money in cross-cultural sensitivity. Cross-cultural sensitivity training, ensuring awareness, knowledge, and acceptance of other people's culture. Because imagine a multinational that is sort of like geographically distributed. A multinational that's in America, in Europe, in Japan. You really need to make sure that your employees, especially when they are crossing borders, actually are sensitive to other people's culture. Now, even today that we're working remotely, it's still quite important. This is not just about, being physically in a place anymore, because we are all working, remotely. Well, not all of us, but most of us are online working remotely. Even within our online environment, we need to have that cultural sensitivity. It is so, so important. And like I said, we've been talking about culture for a very, very long time. As far back as 1965, IBM engaged a researcher called Gerd Hofstede to look at, issues of employee morale. And as part of that research, of course, he went on and, we now have, I think, 6 dimensions of culture as part of his work. And he talks about power distance, where we're looking at unequal distribution of power, individualism versus collectivism. This is the culture of, is it an I culture or a we culture? That kind of mindset. Uncertainty avoidance, the level of tolerance for ambiguity. Masculinity versus femininity, heroism and reward. Long-term orientation versus short-term orientation. I mean, some cultures are very patient. They invest in the long term. Some cultures want it yesterday, all that kind of mindset. So we look at all these dimensions, and we also have the indulgence versus restraint, the degree of freedom of human desires. So all these cultural dimensions play out, to different degrees in different society and in different cultures. So cultural awareness, I'm sure you will agree with me, is important for successful and productive interactions. Now, as agilists today, we get involved with a lot of transformation. And one of the things we consider, especially when a multinational is embarking on an agile transformation, is to definitely make sure that the cultural sensitivity, awareness, and training is part of, the whole program. It is on that note today that I have Victor Nwadu. He is an agilist, he's a fellow agilist, and he's so passionate about the subject of culture in the context of agile adoption. And for a fellow agilist who is also trying to promote agile in Africa, this is so important to us. What are the cultures that we need to navigate in order for us to successfully implement agile in Africa? So we are looking at agile adoption with a focus on Middle East and Africa. That is our subject for today. So I'm going to bring Victor on right now. Hello, Victor.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's so good to have you. We can hear you all right. Yes.
Excellent.
Great to have you here, Victor. Thank you so much for the time you're investing on Sincerely Agile with Mary today. We really appreciate you. And let me just introduce you properly.
Yeah.
Now, Victor is a LEAN-AGILE Strategy and Delivery Consultant, a certified enterprise and agile teams coach, SAFE program consultant, and the creator of the Agile APIAM RATS model. We will soon let you know what that is. He has extensive experience in developing agile strategies and leading agile evolutionary journeys through to business agility in all types of organizations.
Yeah.
He is the principal consultant at the Q platform, an agile consultancy, and the founder of Wakanda Agility, an agile support group. He coaches agile professionals and enjoys barbecues and Belgian beers in his garden. Now, I worked in Belgium. For a while, and I know that the Belgians talk about their beer a lot. How it is, beer and chocolate, and how their beer is the best. Well, I don't drink beer, so I really can't speak for that. Yeah. So, Victor, thank you once again for being here.
The pleasure is all mine, Mary. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Great to have you. So today we're looking at agile adoption and national cultures.
That's right.
Of course, we are all brought up in our national cultures. So when we form organizations within our, environments, we're all going to be going into our organizations with our culture, right? We come into our organization with our national cultures. And that was part of the, research that Gerd Hofstede actually did for IBM to see how different people, based on their location, based on their culture, how they behaved. But today we're looking specifically at agile adoption and national cultures. In other words, agile has gone global. We all know that.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, the Agile 20 Festival kicked off today. It kicked off today. And the whole of February, there's going to be a celebration for the Agile Festival because the Agile Manifesto is 20 years this February. 20 years this February. Yes. So the party kicked off online about 2 hours ago. Now, being specific to the MEA, we're looking at how, because you see, Agile started in the West, yes. And the manifesto was written by, developers and all of that. But we can all see how great, Agile is, because we can see how, all the benefits that comes with being Agile, seeking business agility and all of that.
That's right.
But we can also see the human side of Agile. And because of that, we are then asking the question, how do we navigate that with regards to our culture? Is it an impediment? Is it an advantage? Are there some things we need to work around? And of course, you're so passionate about it, you have come up with the API. Let me bring that up. That stands for Agile Practice in Africa and Middle East. That is what that stands for. Agile Practice in Africa and Middle East. And the RATS model is looking at the, different aspects.
Functions and all that, and all the good bits as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So, our first question to you would be, why did you come up with this model in the first place? What prompted you to create this model?
Thank you. That's a very, very good question, and that's a question I've been plastered on my emails many times by various people. But the thing is, like you said, the good man get Hofstede. Yeah, when he went, he was working with IBM then, and he did this fantastic work of creating these dimensions, about 4 of them, and he later added 2 more. It's good. We look at the countries he used, he analyzed, he got those data from. You got United States, you got Brazil, you got Japan and all that, but he never looked at Africa. That he never looked at Africa, and he never also looked at the Middle East. And this is what is the main motive, main drive behind my my push for an understanding of African culture and Middle Eastern culture when we are leading agile transformation, and then thinking of adopting it and thinking of the dynamics behind the adoption in order to help, especially Western agilists that come to Africa without this basic understanding. So the model generally is doing 2 things. Is first of all exposing that gap, that awareness, and the other part, which is dysfunctional part, the RATs, which started out with dysfunctional, but we've added a new one, the L, the language, as you know from my last lecture, that it's also, we are telling ourselves that not everything in Africa is bad. That we've mentioned that we kind of crystallize all those dysfunctions that are there, so we are aware of them, and any agilist should be aware of them. But there are also some good bits of it that I highlighted the other time. That good bits, like things like our language, that we need to consider, and these are pluses that we need to kind of multiply in a kind of grow and optimize to fit in the way that we design our playbook to deliver agility for businesses. So so if I just take us back to what I was very, very happy that you made that decision to define what culture. So culture is all those good things that we learn over the course of that as human beings. So which embeds our tradition, our language, the way we eat, even the way we make love, and the way we love our children, and all that. So for us as agilists, why culture? Culture is, as you know, is that thing that drives our mindset. It drives our mindset because everybody in the subset needs to that wants to survive in that society, that wants to get along in that society, will have to adapt or will have to follow the rules and the traditions of those, the principles, as it were, of those society. And each and every individual in that subgroup, in that group or subgroup, need to now have core values that are important to them. These core values dictate the way they behave, the way they think. And their thinking is what drives their mindset. So this is where the alignment is with Agile. because we are going into an organization to change the mindset. Agile is just a set of values and a set of principles behind it that dictates the mindset of how we need to behave to get the benefits of Agile. So the alignment is within the mindset level. So for us to change mindsets, so even any kind of change, that's all. We're leading change in our organization. We are going for the mindsets, and for us to do that, we need to revisit culture at the highest level. And this is why culture is very important. You may have had it, culture. Beats strategy, eat strategy for breakfast, all sorts of
Yeah.
for culture. So that's how important culture is. So for me, the alignment there is for us to now, because culture is what drives everything, what drives the dynamics. It is important that the West understands our intrinsic, our deep culture, all those little dynamics, all those subgroups. Africa has got over 1,000 tribes, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine the complexity. Never mind, then you then have to deal with the Middle East as well. So this is just a kind of clarion cry for people to be aware of this thing, especially Western agilists that come all the way. They're coming from all these consultancies, and they come and engage their clients in Lagos or in Abuja or in Africa in general, and they have all sorts of problems. I don't understand why they have that problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is why I went into a deep dive in breaking down. And if you go to the model itself, you see how it breaks the various kind of organizations. It starts with the typical organization that is from the West. We all know what that is. It's from the West, Western thinking. And the other point is that when Agile was being cooked up in 2001 or 2011 by the authors of the manifesto, I don't think they were thinking about Africa then. They are not thinking, they are not exactly. So I'm not saying that there is a bad thing for them. They were dealing with their problems then. But
Absolutely.
Now that Agile has become a big global phenomenon, we now need to bring out ourselves and say, look, if you want to come and do Agile in Africa, you must understand us for your agility for your program to succeed, or for you and I.
Absolutely. I'm happy you brought that up. Because when the whole movement started, it was 17 people coming together saying, hey, we are developers in the software industry and we have a common problem. So they got together to solve a common problem of developing software, and stuff like that. And they came up with the Agile Manifesto, the 4 values and the 12 principles. So they kicked off. They started trying to solve their own problem. It was that simple, really. But guess what? When they started, even they had no clue how this was going to, how wide and this was going to be. Absolutely, and they had no clue whatsoever that they were actually starting a movement to reignite humanity. This is how I try to, package it. That Agile reignites humanity. So let alone thinking of Africa, let alone thinking of the Middle East. That wasn't in the picture at the time. Do you see what I mean? But now that Agile has gone beyond software development, we now have Agile in marketing, Agile in human resource, Agile in finance. Now Agile has gone global. And one of the things we're all trying to do as Agilists today is promote Agile in Africa. Because we can see the benefits this can, give us as individuals, as teams, as communities, and as, a society as a whole. However, we are also aware that there are some probably cultural challenges that might hinder Agile adoption. Okay, we talk about power distance. We talk about collectivism versus individualism. These are all part of the things we're talking about. In your RATS model, you talk about religious intrusion. You talk about age respect paradox. For example, in our environment, even in work environment, you see somebody much older than you. Sometimes you can't even call them by name. You can't even call them by name. Okay, over here, you see a 17-year-old just come out of school. He goes into an organization. He sees a man all gray, maybe like in his 70s, and his name is John, and he says, hello, John. In other cultures, that would be difficult for that 17-year-old to do. Now, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's their culture. So this is the conversation we are having. And on that note, I want to bring up this question. In your blog, you talked about how the Agile Manifesto was developed with only the Western cultures in mind. Can you just elaborate? I know you already touched on it a little bit. Can you elaborate a little bit more how this can be, mitigated?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, while like everything else, we give even the good man hosted, he did keep improving on his own dimensional models. The Apian rats model is an organic model. We're still building. Recently, like I said, we just added language to it. I was just thinking of how to merge that into the rats already, but that's how it will improve, and it will get more as we learn, as we collect more data. So it's not that we are saying the authors of the manifestos have done us misjustice and injustice, or no, we're not saying that. We understand the way things, the way of the world, and the way things improve. Even Hosted's dimension model didn't even, well, I would say that there are factors, there are forces in the world now that have really changed the paradigm of culture, like the millennials, like Trump, Brexit, global energy, what's it called, pollution, and all that. Yeah, so these are factors that were not even thought about or considered when this model was created, and so we need to put all those in a context, in the way we analyze things now, and that's why I haven't brought anything that will make the model look as if it's a fight back, a pushback against the Western thinking. I just want to put that out there. So we have dysfunctionalities that we know already, like, for example, the rats, the religious intrusion. We know our culture, where religion now is now brought into corporate space, where people now have even 5 minutes prayer before something as time conscious and time box, like and the daily Scrum stand-up meeting. Yeah, so these are dysfunctions, but if you analyze it well, and if you find out that this dysfunction has bonded these people together, and they are now more effective than without the prayer, don't be in a hurry to disrupt it. Leave it, let it generate and bring all the good things that you want, especially in a startup where they need those teams to perform. But in your brown bag sessions and your training sessions, you then highlight it so that as they mature, you then curb those kind of behaviors. That's one bit. So these rats dysfunctionalities, at first glance, they may look, oh, ew, we shouldn't do that. But when you analyze it in the context of our own culture, if you disrupt it too early, it becomes a showstopper.
Okay.
So these are the things we really need to look at when we are talking about. We need to be very, very careful when we deal with the complexities behind our culture.
Exactly. You talked about, for example, the daily stand-up. The daily stand-up is a 15-minute time box meeting. And it is actually called a daily stand-up. For the benefits of those who don't know, it's actually called a daily stand-up, which really means that, for the most part, we're going to be standing up. Why? So that we can do what we have to do very quickly and be out of here in 15 minutes. It's not supposed to be a long meeting. Now, what you're saying is that in some cultures, some people want to even pray before they start their daily stand-up. They want to pray.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So as an agilist coming into this environment, that prayer is important to them. How do you tackle that? How do you, even in a normal setting, when you come into an organization, you don't just go in there and go boom, 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 boom. You have to do this, you have to do that. This is what the Agile Manifesto said. This is what the Scrum Guide says. Of course, we are not dogmatic about our approach to transformations. But when we start talking about sensitive issues like culture,
Yeah.
Somebody praying, that is his culture.
Yeah.
How do we then, as agilists, navigate that? Do we, just leave it, let it fly because that is their culture? And then again, remember, they are supposed to be self-organizing.
Yeah.
If they are a self-organizing team and they start their daily stand-up with a prayer and end it with a prayer, what's wrong with that?
Okay. So the thing is, we like I said, we need to be very careful. So as an agilist, when you go in there, you want to your main goal is to make the organization agile. So whatever they need to do to become agile and deliver quickly and become a learning culture and to do all those lovely innovative environments and in the end everybody being happy, whatever it takes within their context, do it. So we're not saying, we do know that because from frameworks are very prescriptive, they are very time conscious, like Scrum, for example.
Yeah.
And at first instance, it will seem as something that is going against the timekeeping. We'll look as if this is crazy. We shouldn't be doing this. But when you analyze it and you find out that, if, for example, in the Middle East, when if they don't do it that much, they have specific time. But where you find somewhere the entire culture, the internal culture of the organization itself is embedded in this praying culture, you don't go straight up and go. And if you, as long as it's not a blocker, if it's a blocker, blocking value on an impediment or forcing itself to be a bottleneck or a constraint to, what needs to be done to add value to customer products or to the customer space, then you have to gently make this thing aware to them. It starts from training. You teach them the agile way, first of all. If they don't have the context, they don't know how they're supposed to behave as an agile team, they will not know. That's the first thing you do. Then you expose all those things that they are doing that are not aligned with the agile way of, but then if it's producing, it's making them an effective team, there is then the challenge. It's how do they know if they stopped it, whether they will be better or not. So you need to have an open mind and let them be aware of it first of all, and let them know that there is an opportunity here to experiment.
Yeah.
Let's experiment without the prayer. Or if you want to be pragmatic about it, can we move this prayer sometime earlier? But then the complexity comes in because Nigeria and other countries have Muslims and other various kind of religion. When you have the team members, some of them are agnostic, they're not religious and all that. So that kind of adds complexity. So for me, in the broader sense, that praying it's an impediment in my view. And for an advance, for a team to mature in the agile way, that need to be addressed in some way. I'm not saying the final impact should be no prayer, but it needs to be done mitigated in such a way that it will not impede value.
Thank you.
To experiment, get data about it, let the team know that there's opportunities for that, and so that they agree. Because if they don't agree, you're going to have a big pushback. It's all about.
And I like you said. Yeah, absolutely. I like you said, training. I mean, there needs to be awareness. And of course, is this creating an impediment? Is it a blocker?
Yeah.
And we need to carry everybody along. It's almost like working remotely and you're trying to fix a meeting. Okay. Some people are just waking up. Some people are just going to bed. The time zone difference now is crazy. You need to come to some kind of, consensus, right? Yeah. And you need to try and share the inconvenience.
Yeah. Yes.
You need to come together.
Now we're making them aware of it.
Exactly. First, they need to be aware that, this time zone is a challenge. Okay. So how do we share the inconvenience? So I'm just trying to bring that same mindset to a cultural situation where we have a team that is quite diverse. We are talking about the MEA region now. Okay, maybe we have some, it's a multinational company. We have people who are not, who are of different cultures. Yes. How do we, navigate that? Again, it is about having that conversation, right?
Yeah.
It is about trying not to make assumptions and to see how we can, should I say, circumnavigate the issue and make sure that we come to some kind of outcome that is acceptable to everybody.
For everybody.
Because we are not saying we are throwing culture away. Even before I came into the agile space, I've been working as a consultant for 12 years. And when I, engaged in capacity building, I would travel to the north, Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Mina.
Yeah.
I would always have to consider the fact that on Friday, they needed to go and pray
Yeah.
because the majority of them in that part are Muslims. So I would have factored that in. And most of the time, if my training is a 1 week long training, I'm done by about 30 minutes before they need to go and pray. And then sometimes, if it's one of those very intensive training where we really need to continue, we will take quite some break. They'll go to, for prayers, they'll come back and we'll continue the training. So it's about being flexible also as agilists, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I have on the screen here, the RATS model. We've talked about religion. What about the age? The age respect paradox. Of course, I already talked about Nigeria, where you can't just see a man with gray hair and call him
Yeah.
John.
Absolutely. I mean, that age one, right? It's that's even the good thing, because for me, I see in our culture, you don't go and call your uncle by his name. It's seen as rude, and I think somewhere in the East, the Asian, some people in the Asian communities don't do that as well. So it's not new. What is a big issue? What is more inherent, or a more localized issue for us, is the fact that in Africa, when you have an older person cross generation, in a team of maybe younger developers and a one IBM server programmer, whatever you guys call them, and he's been there for like forever. He now we feel, if you address, or where you put teams in groups or whatever, it doesn't make sense to optimize. You don't optimize the team value, teams effectiveness, by making sub teams an agile team. But sometimes when you now tell the teams to be self-organizing, self-managing, these adults, these old elderly men or people, tend to want to own that part of the process. They want to, because, oh, I'm older than you, I'm wiser than you, I've been here for like forever, you cannot be telling me what to do. They even, one incident, like I mentioned, in Nigeria, actually, they were even attacking the project manager, saying, you, this small boy, you can't be telling us what to do because you're a project manager. So those kind of dysfunction need to be addressed. And it's that, for me, the best way to that has to go, because it doesn't work for me. I don't see any good thing around it. And the best way to do that is to tackle it from the top, but get a buy-in from the sponsor, the leaders of the organization. Let them know that this is not going to be effective, not going to create an environment that will be safe enough for people to give their best, to be effective enough to add value to customer. And then make that, just bring it out, let them be aware of it. And I'm sure leaders will find a way to do that. If you have a pushback for this particular person, it's better to talk to that person and let them know. But like I said before, it is better as a first instance to train everybody in that training. In the training itself, they will have understood that they have to work together, and there's no age. It's all by merit, and it's all by team effort. No, I senior you for here or whatever. So that's the best way to deal with that. That is just a total impediment. It's a total blocker. There are no good aspects to it at all. That needs to go.
It is a huge blocker. And imagine a situation where, like you said, you have somebody who's been in the organization for so long. They know all the, in and outs of the organization. And then you have a youth copper, for example, in Nigeria, just coming into the organization. And this youth copper is, maybe the product owner or the scrum master.
Yeah.
Like you rightly said, there's that cultural thing. You're a small girl, you're a small boy. I've been here for a long time.
Totally.
It is a mindset thing, isn't it?
Totally. It came from, I don't know whether we were set up by the colonials for that, to set up for failure by the colonials. I don't know how that came into our society, because it's even very, very, now that I think about it, I'm ashamed of it. But it's one of those things that the Westerners and people that concocted the Agile Manifesto are not even aware about.
Yeah, but like we said, when the Agile Manifesto was being created, it had nothing to do with, in fact,
exactly.
it didn't even have anything to do with marketing or finance or HR. It was just about us, them solving the common problem that they have. Absolutely. Now, coming back to the issue of age and respect thing. It is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing to respect people who are older than you, but we now need to ask ourselves, when we are in a work setting, we've got work to do.
Yes.
We are paid to be here. We are paid to get the job done. So but that is not to say, even in the West, I mean, I go into organization believing that I'm respecting everybody, and that respect is reciprocal. Okay. Yeah. So respect should be reciprocal regardless of geographical location. But when we start using that age difference as a tool, as a weapon, I have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, we need to address what, because respect is a very big thing in Agile. When in fact, it's one of the major values there. Respect people, respect the process. That we need to make that very clear. It's different from the kind of respect we're talking about here. This is by dysfunctional respect, where we think we Agilists now think is dysfunctional in Africa, because this person comes in and demands respect and demands the authority of knowledge and authority of expertise, so that we now say, you must respect me because I am older, I know more than you. He blocks himself to new information. That is not a team way of doing things.
No, it's not. And it's not that kind of respect.
It's not that kind of respect at all,
Yes.
Respect Africa, but it's not.
Yes, it's not. I totally agree with you. And respect is reciprocal anyway. So if you've got some expertise, you need to also recognize that this younger person has expertise also that they're bringing to the table. Exactly. And again, it comes to that training. And of course, it takes time. Even here in the West, I've been in organizations where some people felt, Mary, you need to go faster. I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
When it crashes, it is very
exactly. You need to take time with people, because it's a journey, and you're asking a lot of them. When you're trying to get people to change their mindset, you're asking a lot of them. So it's very important that we, approach this from the point of, awareness of what this is causing, the consequences of this behavior, training them and helping them through that journey. Yeah. Otherwise, it amounts to a lot of waste. And that takes me to the next question I have for you. How does one start a conversation about a cultural practice that very clearly amounts to a lot of waste?
Yes.
Now, in a lean environment, muda is waste, mura is waste, and muri is waste. These are Japanese terms for waste, okay? Yeah. I will tell you what they mean shortly. They are all forms of waste anyhow. Yeah. Now, like I was saying, you can observe that there's a lot of waste going on. Now, organizations are in business to make money, not to throw money away. But this culture normalizes as business as usual. It is business as usual. Yes. But guess what? There's a lot of waste involved. As an agilist, how do we tackle this?
Okay, that's a very good question. First of all, we need to make them be aware of API and RAS, first of all, about the model that brings all these things to crystallizes them in precipitated form, so that they know and are aware of it. Okay, then we need to collect data. Because I found from my experience that just to cut all arguments, present data. Nobody is going to argue with you. As Agile creates space for innovation, it also creates space for a lot of experimenting. You must have heard of fail fast, fail safe. Yeah, we have the opportunity in Agile a lot to, in fact, in a safe framework, there's an entire sprint laid out for just let's innovate, let's hackathons go crazy, that kind of stuff. So we collect data to show that all these dysfunction are not helping, and it is very, very clear, especially in very time box frameworks like Scrum. They like to use Scrum, and Scrum is the main thing there. Anything that obstructs time, it will obstruct value. And anything that makes people unhappy, creates stress in the team, it will create angst, and it will obstruct the cohesion within the team, and it's going to affect value. So by our training and our making these things aware, making them aware, and making the team aware, or the organization as a whole aware of these issues, that seem to be internal and specific to our culture, and because we have taken it as business as usual. Is one of the things about culture, traditions, and habits. It has become a habit, and we've taken it as normal. There are a lot of things, especially like I may have my own opinion on spraying money at parties. I don't like it, but it has become normal. In fact, sometimes if you don't spray, people think you are being rude. Okay, so these are those things that I said that it has become a business as usual in our society. When you go as an agilist and tell them this is waste, they'll be telling you just say, what's that? Especially time, time, African time, it has become business as usual. People expect, in fact, you don't have a meeting at 8 o'clock, you put some kind of lag time for you to make space for African time. So we need to step on this and clear them and make the people, Western agilists, be aware of these things that they will see as Muri and Muda, that they are normally seen as business as usual in our culture.
Absolutely.
That's what that statement is. It's all about awareness, and so that they can know there's a gap, they disconnect there, and how you address it depends on the context. I'm not going to tell any agile coach how to operate. It depends on what you see there. So you design your playbook according to what you see on the ground. So
absolutely. And I'm happy you brought up the issue of timekeeping, for example. Now, in an agile environment, we often talk about the lean agile mindset. If people are waiting, it is waste.
Yep.
Waiting is waste. And we often talk about this, timekeeping problem. You need to be mindful of the fact that people are paid. People are on a salary.
Yes.
So when time is being wasted, you are actually throwing money away. So we need to do better in that regard. I mean, is timekeeping problem a cultural thing? Is it our culture to be late? Or is this something that I don't know where that came from, because
I don't know where it came from, my sister. Somewhere in our society, you just
I don't know where it came from. I am on time. I am fanatical. I actually say I am fanatical.
You have to be, yes.
And let me tell you what, in the short period that I went to Nigeria, a few times that I was, invited to some parties. I mean, I'm not the biggest socialite here, but I will attend the occasional parties that I have to attend.
Yeah.
Now, Mary Lanignon gets an invitation to, for a party that starts at 4 o'clock. Mary Lanignon is there at 4. I get there at 4 and they are arranging the chairs. They are arranging the chairs for African time.
Yeah.
Okay, so that happens to me a few times, and of course, I started showing up late to those parties because this is a party now. I started showing up late to those parties because it's not as if I need to come and eat at that party. That's why I'm there on time. I'm just somebody who is there, who is on time all the time. But when it comes to my work as a consultant, as an employee, I am on time. If I'm not on time, it was totally out of my control. So I'm fanatical with timekeeping. So I refuse to take that as a culture.
Yeah.
I refuse to take that as a culture.
Because you're a professional, and I'm not saying that there are no professionals back home in Africa, but I have been in meetings where this thing, even at the top level, where you're there and they tell you to wait.
Yeah.
You're there. Yeah, seriously, at the top level. And this person arranges meeting with you. And so instead of, because you want the client to, you came to look for something, you're not going to also walk away, you wait. So this has become a thing now in Africa. So I mean, it's something that needs to go. It's bad. It's not good for us. Especially now that we have a global village where timekeeping is very important, because if you have a client in France or you have a client in Ecuador, you have to keep to that time slot. Otherwise, you will lose that client, and because of that difference in time, you just lose that time. So that needs to go. That's a big thing that needs to go. And the other thing I wanted to say is that even queuing in office, when you queue, is waste. Not just keeping time. When you're waiting or whatever, even when you're queuing, you're not having a flow. A flow system is waste. So our people think so because of I'm in the line, and some of them know we should do our best to get rid of that line. The line is not, the queue is not flowing. we should, there's something wrong. So that's something I just wanted to bring from the statement you just made, to add to what you just made. So timekeeping came about, I think, like everything else that we Africans have now. I'm not passing the buck to the colonials, but I think it's a colonial fashionably late thing that we have copied, and copied badly. The French do it. The French do it. Even in Hollywood, it's a thing. I mean, you don't expect the star to come, the first one to come and right. No. It's known as being fashionably late. I think like one of those things that we copy from the West, and we copy badly. It has now become a thing, and if it's happening socially, it's a problem. But the problem now is especially with the young people now. It's now, with the older generation. It's crept into the professional space.
Absolutely.
And that is where the problem needs to. And in those kind of cases, it needs to be highlighted. It needs to be talked about, and there needs to draw a line somewhere about it, because it is. I don't know of any CEO that will be happy if you tell him that his VPs or his directors are bad timekeepers.
Absolutely. I agree that, socially we can tolerate it, but when it comes to, the business and professional environment, I don't think, it is not acceptable at all. And again, this is not just something that is happening at a certain level of the organization. It is right across the spectrum.
Yeah.
It is right across the spectrum. And if we're talking about the lean agile mindset, this amounts to a whole lot of waste.
Yeah.
It is expensive. It is expensive.
That's right.
Absolutely expensive. And if we could actually quantify it, I mean, some CEOs and financial officers will actually be alarmed at the amount of wastage.
That was where I wanted to go with that conversation, because at the end of the day, in Agile, we are all about value. And for us to have value, the organization to have benefit from that value, we have to be able to retain, to earn that value. At the end of the day, this is why I say have an economic view of things. We are designing, we are writing code and whatever, doing whatever we are doing in the marketing department. The entire goal is to make money for the business, right? So if you are not aligned with whatever you are doing is not aligned in that company strategy, you are not agile. You know, so we need to think about the money we are wasting. If you're wasting time, you're coming late, that time is being paid for. I know it sounds boring, but it sounds like what an accountant should do. But as agilists, we need to incorporate this in our teachings or in our coaching and in our passing of knowledge, so that people will not have a laissez-faire attitude towards time, especially in Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some comments here that I'm highlighting. Joy says everyone should be respected regardless of the age difference. So title, status, or whatever. I totally agree with you. Ronke says it's not easy to make Africans change their mindset. Well, we have to keep educating, just like you said. We have to keep educating.
It takes time, even in the West. Cultural change, transformation, and adoption of that change, or whatever it is, whether it's agile or whether you're teaching them something new. It takes a while. You can't just make change happen within a month or 6 months. No, and the bigger the organization, the longer it takes.
Yes. And of course, Ereda is saying, don't follow the crowd to be late. People will recognize your standard and will adjust. I like what she's just said, because we talk about leading by example, isn't it? Yes. So if we want, people to change their behavior as leaders, we have to, set the standard. Yeah. I know that in some organizations, let me talk about Nigeria now that I know of. In some organizations in Nigeria, when you have a new boss that is disciplined, what happens is that when this new boss starts coming to the office early, they will put the new boss, once he signs in, he's going to put a line. He's going to put a line under his name.
This is why we say culture itself, cultural change. When you drive change starts from leadership. If the leaders are committed to it, it's going to happen, whether anybody likes it or not.
Absolutely.
That's exactly the case. So leaders are committed.
Yeah. So we need the leaders to actually lead by example. And sometimes they go the extra mile, putting out that paper for people to sign, and so that when they come in, they sign, and people are mindful of the fact that he has signed. I
Yes.
need to get to the office on time. So that is one of the ways in which they try to force people to start changing their mindset. But guess what? Once that leader leaves, another leader comes that doesn't really care. Everybody goes back to their normal behavior. That's usually the case.
That's a
But
big problem there.
it is a big problem. It is a big problem. But however, what we are trying to do as agilists is to promote the lean agile mindset, to talk about the waste that is going on in our society, talk about the waste that is going on within our organizations. Even sometimes you have some managers that are asking, people to go and buy food for them. Yes, to go and buy food for them. These things happen. All this kind of waste, all this kind of mindset, we really need to start educating people to say, you know what, this is not acceptable. This is not really our culture. When we want to talk about real cultural, matters, we know what our cultures are. But this amounts to waste, and we need
Yeah.
to,
I really, that when you that thing you just mentioned about people, the leaders abusing their position and asking them to using them there. It all comes to the fact that our culture has allows all sorts of dysfunctionality to crop over the years, and this thing starts from the top. Because I was about to say that in a team, one of the best ways of nipping in the bud any bad behavior is kind of exposure of putting highlighters of the team's working agreement. So if you put a kind of this is how we need to do stuff, and you put it there, and you put like in an agile thing where we put a container there for anybody that is late, or he puts a pound or whatever, things like that. It's easier in a team, but in an organization, and God forbid in a country, it's even more challenging. So these are things that will take time, but what we need to do right now is what we are doing right now, bringing them up, precipitating them out now, so that everybody are aware, both Westerners and we ourselves, and doing what we need to do to make change happen. Change must
Thank
happen.
you so much. Thank you so much. But we really need to give kudos to some organizations within, at least let me speak for my country, Nigeria. There are some organizations in Nigeria that are very, very progressive, very, very progressive. And they are already adopting this agile mindset, as we know. And this whole issue of, age gap doesn't really come into play, because they are already trying to adopt that agile mindset, because they have come to realize that they are just incurring a whole lot of waste with these cultural impediments that they don't need to amplify within the organization. Now, you've talked about the team agreement. Now, in some organizations, I'm sure they have team agreement, but that cultural age and respect thing keeps coming in. And of course, we talk about psychological safety. If, as an elderly person within an organization, I am abusing using my age in a way that I'm trying to create fear, and I'm abusing the whole, age difference status thing, then it is a problem. It is a problem, because what I'm doing essentially is I'm putting fear out there. And if we are in an environment where we have respect for our elders, then it becomes a problem for the young people within the organization, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an abusive respect. That's why I call it a paradox, because you don't know where you are with it.
Yeah.
So it's abusive. So as an agile coach that is trying to effect change there, we need to train that leader. Okay, if that person is the sponsor of the entire change program, we have a problem. We try and train him, let him see that his ways is not beneficial to his organization, and we'll take it from there. Otherwise, I don't think he's committed. Most people that bring in the agile coach, we have two of them: those that want to be seen to be doing agile, and those that really, really want to have agility grow in the organization. So that we just need to call that. I just wanted to say, bring in the last bit before we go. Looking at time, it's just that language issue coming up now. We have been doing a lot of data, collecting data, and doing research organizations that going to use one aspect of the RAT I haven't put there, and it's called local language. So I talked about it a month ago with you guys. So not everything that we do in Africa, not everything in our culture is dysfunctional. In fact, many things are good, and many professional things are good. And one of those things is our local language. And we have now found that it's better for us to start interacting within team level, within organization level, if possible, for us to be able to have a safe, relaxed mind to express ourselves. It takes it's hard work, a lot of energy for people to learn English language and then have to work with English language. Whereas it's easier for them to use their local language to interact even at a place of work. We see things, the effective things happening in India, in Asia, and in countries where the business language, they don't mind using, even though they're speaking, they don't mind using their own kind of form pidgin English and all that. And I think it's something that we need to address in Africa, especially in Nigeria. We don't laugh at people that can't speak English properly. If they can express the idea in their own local language, why don't we speak that language, make everybody comfortable speaking the language? So the power of that is what we are currently correcting data. The data is proving our hypothesis, and then we will publish more of our findings as we go. But that's something I need to push out there. If you can experiment with any of you practicing Agile, your leaders, try and experiment and get back to me. Send me an email and let's know how good that is working out for you.
Thank you for bringing up the issue of language. I work across Europe and I've worked with different people, and they are much more comfortable speaking their own language. That is the truth. I mean, I have been in so many meetings where they'll tell me, Mary, we want to speak our language. And I'll be like, of course, that's all right, because I'm there to facilitate the process, not the content anyway. So I totally agree with you. And even on this show, we're going to be having, from time to time when we're dealing with small businesses, where we are actually communicating with small businesses that cannot afford, international consultants. We are bringing the agile mindset to them in pidgin English. At least let's start from there. So that is the vision. So thank you very much for saying that. And I absolutely agree. We need to collect data, because where people don't want to believe what you're saying, that, there's a lot of waste going on in your organization, just show them the data.
Yeah.
The data will tell them the story.
It's the only language that the leaders understand, business leaders understand. If it's going to affect their bottom line, they will act on it. Trust me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, my takeaway for you today, let me bring up my takeaway thing there. We talked about Muri, Muda, and Mura. Now, these are forms of waste, and we want you to be mindful of them. If you're running your own business, you want to minimize waste. So we have Muda, Mura, Muri. They are all forms of waste. When we talk about Muda, it is any kind of waste, things that don't add value at all. When we talk about Mura, it is irregularity. So for example, you have excessive inventory, there's too much waiting in your system. That is a form of waste called Mura. And when we talk about Muri, it is overburden of people or machine. Okay? Overburden of people or machine. So you need to look at your system to make sure your system is optimized, and that you are not optimizing one part of your system at the expense of another part of your system. So these are forms of waste. Muri, Mura, and Muda, they are not people's names. It's a form of waste. And I just want to see what more comments we have. Mary, what was that? Let me bring that up. Godwin says, the food one got me. I went to Nigeria and rode with my friend to his office. And when we got there, he came down, left all his stuff and picked mine. He berated me and told me to leave them.
Seriously.
Wow. Yemi says, I tell people that English is hard and we need to encourage our local language. Not be lie, you talk at all. English hard, well.
I agree. Because the brain works harder when we take 3 years to learn English.
Yeah.
It's also like Dr. Professor Sophie was saying now, we need to start learning chemistry and mathematics with our local language. We can always learn English later.
Exactly.
But when we use our let's make it easier for ourselves.
And that is why they are more progressive. That is why they are more progressive, because they are learning programming in their language. They are learning chemistry in their language. We are struggling with.
Like I said, we follow the colonials wrongly. There's certain things, I don't know how that came about. We need to now identify ourselves, know ourselves, accept ourselves for who we are, and crystallize all those good things that will help us in this current dispensation, because the Chinese are coming. The competition is becoming more stressful because of the global small village. So we're running
out of time, unfortunately.
I know.
Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much to the viewers for being here today. We thank you for the time you are constantly investing in this show. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for being here. And we will see you again next time. We'll see you next Sunday at exactly the same time. Victor, thank you so much for your time.
No problem, Mary, my sister. I'll see you later. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.